Hello everyone, SoariN here. Welcome to another Thursday upload. Why did my voice change just because I started recording? Hello everyone, my name's SoariN, and I don't like talking in public. Hello everyone, SoariN here. Welcome to another Thursday upload. Today we'll be talking about horror games. Because the reason I'm talking about horror games, well, the reason you've clicked on this video is probably because you've probably played an indie horror game, you know, here or there. The odd famous one, haha, Baldy, Bendy, Fnaf, and I know what you're thinking. Horror games, indie horror games, are incredibly cliche. They use the same features that each and every one already used. You know, you got your jump scares, you got your chases, you got your cheap jump scares where you open a door and it goes, ah, and you go, ah, and then you die. But I'm not here to talk about the cliched horror games today. I'm talking about why indie horror games are amazing, and I'm going to explain that to you in 6 easy points. Don't worry, I have my whiteboard. I always have my whiteboard just in case. Okay, so reason 1, variety. This I will go into in another video. I'm going to talk about the different subgenres of horror you can get, because there are so many different types of horror game out there to play. It's like, I mean, you've got your horror games that you get chased by enemies, you've got your horror games where you don't get chased but it still scares you because there's like jump scares and stuff. So you've got your disgusting games, and by disgusting I genuinely mean ones that cause disgust, you know, either within Outlast. I mean, they have jump scares in them. But reason 2, indie horror games frequent the indie horror game market. So if you want to play a new original idea for an indie horror game, chances are there will be one. You could play one, the next day there will be another one. There's so many different ones you can play, and they're all free, which is my second point. They're free games with storyline. They can still be cheap or free, is crazy, because I've played some really good free indie horror games. They're like, okay, so Slenderman, the original game, that was free and everybody was playing that. Everybody liked that game. Well, I mean, I assume people like that game. There was Nox Timore. That was a game people played back in the day, and I believe that was free up until its like 6th release, because they made a lot of those games. My third reason, there is no corporate exploitation, to an extent. That basically means that an indie developer, whether that be one person or a team of developers of like 5, 6, maybe less, maybe more, they don't get exploited by the companies who own them, because they are owned by themselves, which means if they want to let their creativity make their game, they can do so, and it won't affect the overall project. It will make it better. Again, no corporate exploitation means it's cheap and free, or free. Corporate exploitation, the one I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Big companies taking hold of games, smaller games companies, and completely trashing it. And I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. My 5th reason for indie horror games being awesome. The new concepts that come out of indie horror games is extensive. Now, we all know that ideas and concepts are cheap. You know, they're free. Everybody can think of a new idea. Indie horror games are good ways of interpreting those concepts into actual things you can visualize and experience. And that's why I like indie horror games so much, because these new concepts keep coming out from new people, from new developers. It makes a game interesting to play, because you think, what was going through this person's head? What gave them the idea? And it's things you like think about when you make a game. I don't know. I just really like games, you know? I have a final reason. There are more reasons than this. These are my main ones. The final one is the author interaction. Because indie horror games are quite less recognizable than most games that we play today, you can talk to the author, the creator of the game, and actually have a conversation about that game. So if you have a game and you donate to it, the person says, thank you for donating, what can I do to this game to improve it? And then you give your interpretation, you say why it's so good, why it's not so good, and what can be improved. So by playing a game and talking to the author directly, you can improve that game, making it better. You become part of the system. It's not all fun and games down in the indie horror game community, because there is a dark force at work. When I say dark force, I mean there's one problem. The ratio between good and bad indie horror games is completely unequal, and you will always find bad horror games before you find good ones. That is the only problem I have. Obviously, adding a review, adding a rating, sifts out the bad ones, and you get the good ones. And I especially like GameJolt's feature where it has the hot page or the trending page, because then you know what people like, and you know that they're new. So that's why I like indie horror games. And I'm going to go in more depth in this because of the first reason, the variety of games. I'm going to make another video talking about the different types of horror games there are. If you're new to the indie horror game community, I have created a list of indie horror games that I think you should check out. If you are interested, I've created a list for you and you can go check those out. Games that I think, if you want to be a part of the indie game community, you really have to play first, and then that will determine how much you like the indie horror game community and if you ever want to pursue it. But thank you everyone for watching this short video on indie horror games. Again, this is an introduction to probably a series I'll make about indie horror games. I'm not very good at talking, just randomly rambling on about indie horror, about any topic in particular, but I will try and improve and I will make more videos relating to the subject. So thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye. By the way, my my outro music got claimed by UMG, so now I need to find a new song.